Okay, I promise next year I will wear a costume. This is as good as I get. A normal fan, a patron of Manchester by the Sea. On Red Sox Now on Halloween, it's a Friday, presented by Fan Arch. I'm Mike, and today the show belongs to you. I could not resist getting a comment from Salty Grandpa because I wanted to put it in the sidebar. So, Salty, you've made it. All the things I talked about this all week, the sidebar on this Friday, and I think we'll try to do this once a month, gauging interest. If many of you are not interested, guys and gals, in doing this, we won't. If you have other ideas, shoot them in the comments. Leave them. Like the show, like the podcast, subscribe. We still have people who watch who don't subscribe, so if you could do that. But I felt like in the off season, things are not going to get ramped up for a bit. But I'd do this in the regular season as well because you're such a great community, all of you. And Halloween, we've dressed the show up as you. So we'll do that. World Series is back on tonight. Toronto leads, and they're at home, and we assume all these things. Well, they get everything going for them. Doesn't mean anything. Once that, Kevin Gossman, it's just as hard for him. Trying to pitch the biggest game of his life. They got Yamamoto. I think in these games it's early, right? If Toronto scores 3 or 4 runs right away, could be all she wrote. But this is still a well-oiled machine. Yamamoto's really good. Both of these guys have had great postseasons. And this is really, I think, lining up to be a pretty amazing game because the Dodgers, as we know, are stacked. And I think Toronto would do this too. I mean, both teams, you would play this Game 6 like an elimination. If you're Toronto, the last thing you want to do is go to a Game 7 tomorrow with potentially Glasnow or Ohtani or however they want to do it. But this is going to be all in. The Dodgers, Yamamoto has some struggles early, then he's out. So I like these kind of games. And this should be a lot of fun. So we'll get to Carlos on the series. Carlos _Tennyson. Let's go Toronto, he says. Prevent the Dodgers from getting 9 to tie us with titles. That'd be the Red Sox. Because we have so many people from other parts of the country, maybe not Sox fans. I'm liking this one more. Win for them. Let's go Red Sox. And how do you guys and gals feel about that? Does any of that matter to you? Or do you not want the Dodgers because of their market size and they keep winning, they keep spending? I would be happy for Toronto. Great fan base. They haven't won since 93. I was in college. I remember the Joe Carter home run. God, I love Joe Carter. He was fantastic. So who are you rooting for? Or do you just want to see it go 7? I mean, I like series that go 7. And if we have that, I don't think things lie in baseball because in baseball you're playing a series. And yeah, sometimes teams get breaks, but I always think the true best teams are always there. And the fact that these two could go 7 as two of the top teams really all year. I know the Dodgers weren't division winners, but they were still a top roster. And to see these two heavyweights go a Game 7 would be pretty cool. But what are your thoughts? Do you care? Many don't. Do you like Carlos's take? Prevent the Dodgers from 9 titles? I mean, they're probably going to win one anyways. But yeah, no, I get that. Okay, the comment you've been waiting for is Salty Grandpa. Making the 4 outfielders work for the Sox. That's his comment, pretty much. 2-parter. At Salty Grampy. I love it. If Bieber becomes available, the Red Sox need to sign him to what he deserves. He's clutch. Keep the kids. Ryan is not worth early or Tolley. I'm old. I remember when the 4th outfielder was a future Hall of Famer. Seems to me if they could figure out how to keep Yaz, Rice, Lynn, and Evans happy with playing time, Cora can figure out how to use who they have now. True, but completely different in the sense that those 3 outfielders after Yaz. Yaz, we know he retired in '83. I was actually there, by the way, with my grandfather and my dad. I'll never forget being there in that last game. I was there that whole series. My grandfather did sales, speaking of Grampy, and he got tickets for that whole series, and we went that whole series. But obviously, Yaz had more years after those kids. They were kids, but all way better players than what you have now. No offense to Duran, Rafaela, and Abreu, Rice, Lynn, and Evans. You know, you could say four Hall of Famers potentially, right? I mean, if someone said to me those four, I think all four Hall of Famers, I wouldn't laugh at you. But they knew instantly Rice, Lynn, and Evans had the outfield set. There wasn't even a question mark what they were going to do. And Yaz was a power hitter who they were able to move to first base. I don't think you have that same scenario. Anthony, Duran, Rafaela, and Abreu. You're not moving three of those guys, right? Anthony, Rafaela, and Abreu are not playing first base. I mean, that's crazy if they were to do that. They're not going to do that. It's funny that I'm not saying I would do this, but it is interesting that no one has brought up Roman Anthony playing first, because wouldn't he kind of profile like he's going to have power. Like he could be like offensively, but they're not going to do that. And Duran's not an infielder. He was not a good infielder. That's why they moved him. He could not play second base in the minors. You know, that's why they switched him. And it's not a position he's not going to. You're just not doing that. But I like that. And I think they figured it out last year. But it will be interesting. We'll talk about it on Monday. Chris Cotillo has the interesting stuff about Duran's opt-out. The Red Sox, what they can do with him. But today belongs to you. I like that, Salty Green. Good stuff. But what would you think of the Jays if they don't bring a lot of guys back? And I'll talk about that in my comments. But that's an interesting show in itself. Peter on pitching. Before we get to my comments, how about that? We're going to switch it up. At Peter Garcia, 6645. I agree. I wouldn't trade Tolley or early, but they're going to have to make trades. It's going to be very interesting. I'm definitely in on Bieber. I'm curious to see how they manage to get a number 2 starter. I'm convinced it's going to happen, but have no idea how it's going to be accomplished. Yeah. I think a lot, I get this. I think a lot of people want a ton of moves. I don't need a ton of moves. I need a few improvements. That's a good ball club we just saw. They won 89 games. With some real, they didn't have the depth in their lineup to sustain the injuries they had. And if Anthony didn't get hurt and if Bregman was healthy, I mean, that team could have been 90, 92 wins. I don't think we realize how good that is, right? Even 89. I think 89, if it was 90, psychologically it's different. I'm not saying that you don't do anything, but I don't need a bunch of changes. And this is in my comments from today's. I don't need a ton. I need areas. There's a lot of spots that are good. Third base, the Bregman situation, he hasn't officially opted out. That's not happening until after the World Series. I think we can agree on that. Story, Narvaez. What will they do at first? Is it Casas? Did they sign somebody? Is second base Marcelo Meyer? Or is it Romy Gonzalez? Is Romy full-time first baseman? So they have a lot of options internally. They can do something else. Do they allocate those resources to pitching? I think so. I think those kids, they're not trading, I don't think, unless it's really smacks them upside the face. But we have seen with Yasevich, and a lot of young pitchers, Schittler, if you trade those guys, look what they can turn into. And will they do that? The Yankees, Blue Jays, and Red Sox have like this young core. We want that hot young trade because it's fun. But again, I'm not. Dylan Cease is perfect sense to me. Or, like I've said many times, we don't know what teams are into. The Twins might be okay with not getting Tolle in early, but like Brandon Clark or the kids you drafted. Because they're more of a longer term. That's why Duran's not going to the Twins. It makes no sense for them. He's older. They'd have to give him an extension. That's just not what they're not. They don't operate that way. And why wouldn't they just give that? They'd have to give Duran a pretty good deal. They're going to want Young. So I'm okay with, like I've said, Crochet, Dylan Cease, Bayo, early, and you still have a bunch of guys like we forget about Dobbins, Fitz, Patrick Sandoval. There's a lot of other guys. Crawford, Houck's probably out even longer because your fifth starter doesn't have to be Brian Bayo or Crochet. It can be someone. If Hunter Dobbins ends up being your fifth starter, that's pretty damn good. This is a pretty good arm. So I think that they have things a little bit more sorted out in this offseason. But yes, third base, like I've said, figure out first and second. But for me, it's third base, top priority, a number two starter, even more pitching. They'll fill in with the bullpen, then you address first and second, and we'll see. Do they just platoon Meyer and Gonzalez? That's cool, but I think that last year going into the offseason, you questioned the rotation before they made those moves. The rotation, the bullpen, offensively, how are they going to be? There was a lot of question marks. Catching, Wong was fine, right? A couple of years ago, and then we didn't realize they obviously, defensively he wasn't. That was a question. They had a lot more. And now, the way that their player development has worked, I think the biggest thing for me last year down the stretch was that I talk about Connolly earlier a lot, but you got to think about this. You saw a guy that can be in your rotation for 2026. That was what I saw more in 2025. I wasn't like over thinking or when I just watched him and I said, wow, this is an arm. This is a guy that can pitch in the big leagues. Red Sox haven't had a ton of guys like that come up late in the year, and you're going, whoa. Now, Toronto and the Yankees have done it as well. And those two will be in the rotation, of course, next year. But you've solved a rotation spot, which if you didn't and everything went the way it did, we might be sitting here going, God, Bayo was not great as a 2. We might need to get 2 guys. And then how would that hurt your resources? Because of what pitchers cost. It's so hard to get these guys. But yeah, they're going to figure out the number 2. They are going to. They love Bieber. I'd be okay with that. I would be okay if they signed Bieber and Dylan Cease and Bregman. If they did Bregman, Cease, and Bieber and said, listen, we're going to go with Casas, Romy, and Meyer, I'd be fine with that. I would. I know we probably want more at first base. But if you think about it, if you're going to get those 3 guys, And I understand it's the Boston Red Sox, but still, you still have to spend wisely. Bieber's going to be more because of what this is how it works in postseason. Derek Lowe got the same deal. Cease will be expensive too, and we know Bregman. That's going to be a lot of money. And remember, they got guys that they're going to want to re-sign. If Connolly Early ends up being a guy, which we think he is, he's going to get an extension. This is the little wrench that's different in the game now than before, is that these young players are so impactful that you've got to lock them up because you'll never keep them. You look down the road, like if Tolle and all these guys pan out, Narvaez, they're going to get extensions. So I am just so fascinated by all this, but let's hope that they secure, if anything, you've got to figure out Bregman, that third base, number 2, top priority. Now, many of you have come up with a scenario. If Bregman walks and they sign Bichette, that would be okay with me. It'd be interesting if Toronto did that, right? They won the World Series and let these guys walk. But you know what? It happens. Players like going to different places. It's they win there. They want to go somewhere else. Good job, everyone. We could try to do this once a month. And we could do more. Like I said, I didn't get a ton, but we'll do if we want to do this once a month. Especially around the holidays. Maybe the Black Friday would be a good time to do. And we can double up, triple up each spot in the sidebar. If we get 40 requests, I'll read them all. All right? Have a good weekend. Enjoy the World Series. We'll talk about a winner on Monday. We'll have a winner on Monday. Happy Halloween. Give out candy. Enjoy high school football, college football, the NFL, and the World Series. And as always, go Sox.